Welcome to the Vibrant Life podcast, the official podcast of the Vibrant Life community. And I'm Sarah Nolan, and I'm here with Janelle. She is the founder of the Part-Time CEO, where she helps mission-oriented women CEOs build six-figure companies while working 20 hours per week. And Janelle is an amazing friend, and she is just an amazing human who really defies the odds and has one of the biggest drives of anybody else that I've seen. Nothing will stop this woman. And I'm so glad to have you on our episode today, Janelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Sarah, it is an honor to be here, and thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it.
So so what we're going to talk about today with Janelle is how this is an incredible story of how she went from being a tutor on government assistance and then in less than 2 years building a six-figure company. Now, most businesses fail within the first year, and most of those successful the businesses that succeed in that time fail within the next 5 years. So this is incredible, just based on statistics and some things that you have gone through during that time period. So Janelle, can you share with us a little bit about where you came from and your journey to where you've got yourself today?
Totally. So I, like to start in fall of 2016 because that was the year that I realized, I think there comes a time in every young adult's life when the real world just kind of hits you like a 2x4, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you had a childhood kind of similar to mine, I had a very average middle class childhood. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a veterinarian. And I went to high school, went to college, followed the yellow brick road, all the things. And then I became an adult, for real, right? And it just really, it threw me for a loop. I realized the world wasn't as kind as I thought. I realized that, working hard, which we're going to talk about, is not the antidote to everything, unlike what they tell you in school growing up. And so I had a really great college career. I got a master's in education by the time I was 22. I've taught, fourth grade, 6th through 8th, 11th grade. And so just had a really vibrant early career life. And then I was doing really well. So by the age of 25, I became an assistant principal at a private school. And along with that, got a 100% scholarship to the University of Notre Dame for a master's in educational leadership. So again, with the yellow brick road, everything seemed to be going just beautifully. I found that I entered into a pretty abusive work situation. So the principal at that school, he just subscribed to that hustle and grind and grit mentality. He was a good old boy from the Midwest. I, truly believe in my heart of hearts that he's a good guy. He just didn't know any better. And so his, kind of Band-Aid solution in helping this school that really wasn't doing well was work harder, push the teachers more, get more out of them. And so I ended up working 50, 60, 70-hour weeks. I wasn't sleeping. I had terrible anxiety. I actually started getting nodules on my neck and shoulder. Just my body could not take it. I don't know if your audience is familiar with human design, but I'm a manifester, human design. And so I don't generate energy the way that most people do. I need a lot of recuperation time, hence the part-time CEO. And so it was just it was literally killing me. When I was 18, I was diagnosed with panic anxiety disorder. And so my anxiety was out full force. So in 3 months' time, so I start working with this principal in August. In December, I get married. In January, I lose my job because I just couldn't keep up with the breakneck pace. And in February, I find out I'm pregnant with my first child. And so I was the breadwinner. My husband was a student at the time. He still is. And I'm pregnant. And so I didn't want to get a job because I didn't want to leave my students in the middle of a school year, right? Because really teaching was my only option. And so I decided to start a tutoring company. And so that went really, really well. I really enjoyed it. But I felt very restless. Like I just felt like I wasn't using my strengths and my talents to their full potential. But what I really liked about my tutoring company was the actual business aspect of it, not the actual tutoring, even though that was my background. And so I started a couple of other companies, after I had my daughter. They all did really well. And so in April of 2018, I actually invested in my first coach, which is where I believe we got connected, Sarah, and took out a bank loan with a 5-month-old child, again, on government assistance, for a 5-figure investment. Within 3 weeks, made that investment back. And less than, I would say, 18 months later, I had a multi-6-figure company. And so really, obviously, there's so much that goes into that. And I know that like, even when we watch like movies and stuff, it's like the hero's journey is like a 10-minute long montage and it looks really easy. But I just have to commend you for the work that you do, Sarah, because truly like that trajectory from where I was to where I am now, and to where I'm headed, it really is all mindset. It's all healing. It's all just kind of inner child work, all the emotional healing that I know that you do for your clients, Sarah. And that's really, kind of what this journey has looked like for me. And it's, in a lot of ways harder, in a lot of ways more joyful, but also so much more rewarding than I ever would have expected.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about the mindset and the healing and all of that, and just hearing this little bit of your story, it reminds me of, I just get this image of a birthing process. It's like you had some of the elements there in the beginning. And what I can see about you, Janelle, is you're really tuned in with what is, with your wants and your needs, and you listen to yourself. And so when something's not in alignment, you listen to that and you adjust. And I wonder if that has contributed to this such fast growth that you've experienced because of your ability to adjust and to have this high standard for yourself. And I know with business a lot of it's trial and error, and so when somebody is attached to a particular path, a particular result, a particular process, then they get stuck, and that just slows everything down. So I just wanted to share that observation because I think it might be helpful for some people. But what do you think? Do you think do you relate to that? Do you think that has anything to do?
I do. I think, so there's a couple of things that play into that. I'm not going to be specific just because, just to protect this person's privacy, but there is quite a bit of narcissism in my family line. I have been checked. I am not a narcissist. And so, but being raised with that level of just extreme confidence, it wasn't until I was older, Sarah, that I realized how much of a gift that was. Now I have kind of an estranged relationship with that person, which is unfortunate and which I do hope to heal. But the good that I can take from that, and that's, a whole different chapter of my story that would require a whole different podcast. But the good that I can take from that is the fact that the script in my mind is very different from what I think a lot of women are actually raised with. And again, it took me, I didn't realize that until I was older. I thought that everyone grew up hearing people say, well, I'm just so much smarter than everyone else. I thought that everyone grew up hearing people say, well, people are just so intimidated by me, right? Now, of course, I know that's not true, but we, you know that our inner script, our inner thoughts are really created before we're the age of 7, right? And so if you grow up hearing scripts like, well, I'm not good enough, well, I'm not this, well, I'm not that, that's kind of what you're going to carry with you throughout your life. I didn't grow up with those scripts. And so that's something that I want to just say that, because I don't want people listening to be like, well, she sounds so confident. Like I can just never be that confident. It's like not necessarily based on merit. It's based a lot more on just like the way that I was raised, which of course has its negativity. But also like that is my internal script, and that is something that people can change. And I know that's what you do with your clients, Sarah. Like you can change your internal dialogue. You can change your internal script. I just happen to kind of get that built into my programming. So that's the first thing, is I would say like, you're right. Like I definitely do have like a very strong confidence. But something else that I asked myself at, in my early 20s that I don't think a lot of women especially ask themselves is I asked myself, what do I want? And I think that there are so many women who they just follow the yellow brick road, which I did, right? I mean, hello, I followed it all the way to Ivy League, right? And then got that ripped out from under me. But you follow the yellow brick road, you allow the influence of people in your life to just make your decisions for you, and you allow other people to tell you what you want. And I think that there are so many women who, and I know that your audience is women and men, but I'm speaking specifically to women,
right.
Who never sit down and actually give themselves the opportunity to explore and imagine what their perfect life would look like. And that is something that I did at a very young age. And what that did is it allowed me to have an address that I could put into my GPS, right? Rather than kind of wandering aimlessly and just following the highway wherever it goes. It kind of gave me something to follow and something to move towards that was custom to me and my desires. And so it makes decision-making very easy. And so it's like, when you ask yourself like, hey, Sarah, want to go rob a bank today? Like, you know who you are, you know where you want your life to go, and jail is not part of that equation, right? So that's like a really easy answer, right? But I think a lot of times we allow, again, others to make decisions for us, others to say, well, what college are you going to? Well, whichever one my boyfriend's going to. I had some opportunities to take paths that I chose not to because I was dating someone at the time, or because my parents didn't want me to, that now looking back, I'm like, oh, I should have done that, right? And I think that all of us can look back and recognize kind of missed opportunities because we followed someone else's advice or desires rather than tuning into our own.
Exactly. I can see in my life, every time I've come to a definite decision, the thing happens almost instantly.
Yeah.
It's like everything just gets into that alignment and it's just a straight shot. And I love what you said about decision making. I think that's something you don't hear very much in this process of deciding what you want and then going for it. Is that you're right? Decision making is so easy when you know what you want. It's clear. It's a clear yes or no. But if you're afraid to make a decision, which so many, men and women both. So people have such a hard time making decisions because, for various reasons, the way we were raised and, who knows what it is.
Right.
But but yeah,
Fear of what people
that's
will think. That was a big one
exactly.
for me. Yeah.
And the commitment,
Yes.
of that, and what, just the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And the downside is, if you don't decide what you want, you don't get intentional about those things, then it's decided for you. And that is so much scarier to me than the potential of something going wrong.
Oh my goodness, 1,000%. Well, and I think it's either decided for you, or it's almost like your body and your energy will constantly be fighting your reality.
Right.
And that's where so much, disease and dysfunction shows up and toxicity shows up, because it's like, if you internally know that a relationship is not the one for you, or a business opportunity is not right for you, but it's so easy to just kind of go with the flow, or, not argue against the person or what have you. And then you just have this internal turmoil that, it's just not worth it. It's just too big of a price to pay for, less conflict up front, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And the self-sabotage
Right.
that happens, if somebody is totally decided on a thing, they're not going to sabotage themselves, because that's going to go against that decision. Just a really quick example on this. I took 2 years off of working out consistently. And so it was really hard to get back into that habit. And I was like procrastinating, sabotaging, like I'd do it and then stop. Like I'd always find excuses. And then one day I just made a decision. And I don't even remember how I made that decision. I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. And then I haven't messed it up since. And it was because of that decision. And I don't think I ever will mess it up, because I came to such a clear decision on that.
Yeah.
And it was so it's like makes everything so easy when you can just make the decision, and then everything is clear from there.
Totally.
So let's go back to your story about, how you got from point A to point B. And you were saying that this, a big part of it was the confidence that was instilled in you from an early age. And what I love about that, Janelle, as a leader with you, is that, that's an advantage that you have. And you have this experience of having that instilled confidence. You know what that feels like, and you know where that comes from. So now you can go teach your clients and your audience how to do that for themselves. It's never too late. They can do that now. And then for parents, gosh, I feel like so much of, the way we parent, I know before I realized all of these things, I didn't know how to instill specific things in my kids. And so this is such a power that, we all can instill confidence in our kids intentionally in a healthy way. So I'm really excited about that for you. And I just wanted to amplify that a bit. But so what else? I know you said there's been a healing process to all of this. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Totally. And something that I want to say, just kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, is like, in terms of parenting, that confidence building for me is my absolute highest priority. It's like strong and kind, right? Like, you obviously want your kids to be confident, but also good. And so I just want to, affirm any parents who might be listening. I think there's a lot of fear, and especially with older generations, of spoiling your kids. Spare the rod, spoil the child, right? And a lot of times they don't want to, you don't want to be over complimentary, or, over too much snuggling or whatever of their children. Like, you literally cannot, and not that you want to be showering them with compliments, but if you are giving them, with a growth mindset, and, if you're really just showing how much you love them and admire them for who they are as individuals and for the good things that they do and for, like, again, who they truly are, right? Within boundaries, of course, like, there is no way that you can spoil them, and it can only do good. Like, children growing up into adults knowing that they are loved just for being who they are can only do good in this world. And so
we need more of those people.
We need more of those people. Absolutely. And so I did just want to say that. But in terms of my healing, Sarah, it has been a lot of boundary setting, and it has been a lot of kind of breaking down labels that have been placed on me by whoever, by parents, by schools, by myself, right? And so for me, a lot of my healing process, and right now I'm working with 3 mindset coaches, a lot of my healing process has been again, setting boundaries and just recognizing that a lot of the things that we feel obligated, a lot of the relationships that we feel obligated to maintain, a lot of things that inherently feel really scary to us are complete figments of our imagination. I have a really just good story on that, which is I grew up thinking that I was bad at math. Like, I remember I took an entrance exam to a really, really good school in our area, and I wasn't accepted because even though I got a 98% in reading, I got a 60% on the math test. And so I was just like, well, I'm just bad at math and it's going to hold me back. And, even in college, I didn't do certain majors and minors because there was too much math. Like, I really just spent my entire life avoiding math. Anyway, I want to get my master's degree. I have to take the GRE. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to focus on the math section. I'm not even going to look at reading. I know I'm good at it. It's fine. I'm just going to focus on the math section. I only studied math. Come to find out, I get the results of the GRE. I scored the same on math as I did in the reading section.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's just like, and we can say that it's because I studied, but like, let's be honest, I studied for like 3 days before the exam. I'm definitely a crammer.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I did this like whole course. Like, it was literally I just took a ton of practice tests. So I realized, wait, I'm actually not bad at math. It just maybe doesn't come as naturally to me, but like, I can actually, really what I did over those 3 days where all I was doing was math was I just shifted kind of the angle from which my brain was seeing the problems, right? And so I think that's just a really clear example of how those things are literally a figment of your imagination. And then I think a lot of those things, and I'm going to keep going with the math example, tend to follow us into our adult life. So I always thought I was so bad with money. Like, I always thought I just wasn't good with money. I was such a spender. I got labeled as a spender as a child. And then now as an adult, and now that I run my business and I have forced myself to be the one to manage my company's finances, my husband offered, I said no. I was like, no, this is my baby. I want to do this. And I have been, we haven't had anything crazy happen yet. My company is the way that it is, right? I took $10,000 and turned it into several hundreds of thousands, right? And so I think, again, a lot of women have these beliefs about themselves. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at finances. Oh, I should leave that to my husband. Oh, right, whatever. And it's actually not true. So for me, it's been a lot of kind of tearing down those labels. It's been a lot of setting boundaries in relationships. And it's been a lot of kind of going back and continuously asking myself, what do I want? But even taking that a step further, it's how do I want this to feel, right? How do I want this to feel? And that's really, Sarah, why I created the part-time CEO, because for me, I was like, I want this to feel good. I want to feel rejuvenated every time I walk into work. I don't subscribe to the hustle and grind mentality. And I also want to be a stay-at-home mom to my daughter, right? And so again, going back to what do I want? I wanted all of these things, but I wanted it to feel like my life was in equilibrium, and I wanted it to feel like my business was serving me and not that I'm a slave to my business. And I promise you, I have not been perfect at maintaining that equilibrium, but it is kind of my anchor. And what I always go back to is like, does this feel the way that I want it to feel? And if not, what needs to change?
I love that. And I love that, that gauge that you're using. How do I want it to feel? Because it's all about the feeling. Like that's the whole reason we do anything is for the feeling that it gives us. And so again, making those decisions and being intentional, if you don't make a decision around that, then all of a sudden you are at the whims of everybody else. And before you know it, your life is gone. You're in your business 70 hours a week and you feel like you're going to die, and your body starts to fail on you.
Yeah.
That decision. I love that.
Absolutely. Well, and I've been there, Sarah, and let me tell you, I don't do this perfectly. And, but I always know when it is, because we all have like mom guilt, and we all have this, or parent guilt, and we all have this like internal sense of, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing whatever. And I think you can really tune in and ask yourself, like, is this real, right? Because I think that's what leads to that like hustle and grind mentality, is we just don't feel like we're enough inside. And so we try to overproduce so that we can be more valuable. And I mean, again, going back to the personality test, I'm an Enneagram 3, 3-wing 4. And so for us, I'm the achiever. I want to be valuable. I want to, be applauded, right? If I'm being perfectly honest. And so that has led to me over delivering and over delivering and over serving at the expense of my own energy, but then also at the expense of my family. And so I think that's a very fine line, because oftentimes I think we go into business, with this idea of like, oh, it's going to be so great. I'm going to be an online entrepreneur. I'm going to have all this freedom. I'm going to be my own boss. And then we end up being like more of a slave driver than our like previous bosses, right?
Right.
And again, it kind of goes back to that desire to be valuable. And so I think that requires a lot of healing too. Like if you find yourself overworking, but you're like, oh no, but I have to, because I have to do this and this and this, and your to-do list is a mile long, I wouldn't necessarily say visit the to-do list. I would come back in and revisit maybe your inner child. Like who is holding the whip and cracking that whip over you? It's yourself. So it always starts, all roads lead back to you, right?
Exactly. And you had mentioned something before we started about, I might be interpreting here, but allowing it to be easy. And that's the dichotomy of doing online business, because it can be really easy. And a lot of people are not okay with that. It's like they want it to be easy, but then there's that incongruence inside that says, well, success has to be hard, and success has to mean lots and lots of hours. And the reality is, with an online business, there's just not a lot of hours required a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so some people may not feel as valuable because of that, because of their stories around value and success. So what has been your experience with this? And that's an incredible boundary to set with the 20 hours a week. And so how did you come to that realization and be okay with that?
Great question. So, I mean, for me, I came to this realization when I caught myself saying verbally that my daughter was the most important person in my life. And then you look at my calendar and I wasn't spending my time. My calendar did not reflect that reality. And so that really made me, and she was 5 months old. I was just beginning my motherhood journey. And I was just like, they always say, start the way you want to continue. Right. And I was just like,
I love that.
I can't be so naive as to think, oh, well, let me just get my business off the ground, which I'm sure I'm going to trigger a bunch of people right now. But once I get my business off the ground, then I can slow down. Once we hit the 6-figure per year mark, then I can slow down. Because you and I both know, Sarah, running successful companies, there's no end. I mean, we hit one peak and we want to climb the next mountain, right? There really is no end, especially if you're a born high achiever. And so I was just like, no, like I need to set the standard and I need to set the foundation and I need to really prioritize, because for me, being a stay-at-home mom, for me personally, was more important than running a successful company. And if I had to choose in a heartbeat, I would choose staying home with my daughter. And so that's that, right? So that's kind of how I made that decision, was when I kind of caught myself lying with my calendar, in terms of who was the most important person in my life. From there, it's so funny when you mention like it's allowed to be easy. And I think, again, we watch the movies, we watch the Marvel movies, we watch the hero movies, and we see this hero's journey. And it's like, what makes the hero is that he, or she just expends all of this energy and effort, and it's the blood, sweat, and tears, and it's Rocky pulling a car in the snow up a mountain, right? And it's just like, we want those scars, right? To like prove that we earned it, right? That we earned what we have. And I think what people don't realize, and that most certainly is true in like some professions, right? Like if you're an Olympian, like it's going to be really physically hard to get to where you want to go, right? Like you earned it, right? But when it comes to things like online entrepreneurship, where it can be really easy and it can just flow and it can just be this like gorgeous manifestation of your talents meeting someone else's need. And there doesn't need to be anything complicated about that. What people they're trying to create a quote, quote, hero's journey, right? So they're staying up all night and they're working themselves to the bone, and they go from the bed to the kitchen to the office and back.
That was me the first 2 years of business, and it was horrible.
It is. It's so horrible.
Especially for my family.
Exactly. And so we create, we become our own slave drivers because we want to earn it, because it's supposed to be hard. What I think people don't realize is that we do still have that hero's journey as entrepreneurs. It's just internal.
Exactly.
Internal up level. And it's the woman that I have to become to be, and now kind of the mountain that I'm climbing is that 7-figure mountain. So it's like the woman that I have to become to be that 7-figure business owner can't be the same woman as did 6 figures in her first year of business, right? It's not the tutor, and it's not kind of that, naive 25-year-old girl who's being abused by her boss, right? And so it's like, it's that shedding of who you are before and healing your inner child and doing all of that, the healing work, again, that you do and that I do with my coaches. That's the tough part. But the problem is that no one sees that. And so I'm like, external be easy, because the internal is going to be really hard.
You know what I love about online business in the spiritual sense is it really is about creating something out of nothing. Like you don't need anything for online business. I remember when I moved my business online, I got rid of everything, and I had email, and I had PayPal, and I had social media, and that was it. And I remember when I got my first paying client, I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? It's like, you don't need tools. You don't need supplies. You could do it all on your phone even. So it's like, okay, what is the limitation? It's not a limitation of supplies. It's not that you don't have the best technology. It's not that you don't have the best whatever. It's such a pure internal game.
It is a mind game.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely is. And you're so right. There's no overhead. I mean, I remember my first year in business, other than investing in my coach to kind of teach me the ropes, I mean, my expenses were less than $1,000 a year. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so adding in my computer, maybe it was like $3,000 a year, right? But and it's just like, because I had to purchase a new computer because I was still using my computer from college. But other than that, it was just like the software is so minimal, and it's like anyone can start at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I regained my investment within 3 weeks of 5 figures, right, in my first month of business. And gosh, looking back, I was just flying by the seat of my pants. I can't believe people paid me. But no, you're so right. It's a mind game for sure.
So what were some of the biggest mental and emotional and even spiritual breakthroughs that you made to achieve some of the things that you've achieved the past couple of years?
That's a great question. I would say the first one that hit me kind of like stark right at the beginning was a lot of relationships that I had to let go. I had to cull a bunch of relationships. So like literally, again, within that same 3-week mark, when I was just beginning, I start posting on social media and doing organic marketing. I think I posted like my first posts were really bad. I posted like a couple of quotes from Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? So like literally not even me saying anything, like just stealing from, Robert Kiyosaki. And I, from just those posts, had my husband's best friend. So this man was like in our wedding, okay? The first people to see Addie when she was born, his wife blocked me on Facebook.
Oh my gosh.
Just like ended our friendship. And she was like our neighbor, like her and my husband were friends for years. Her husband and my husband were friends since high school, right? Ended our friendship because she was triggered by Robert's quotes from Robert Kiyosaki's quotes from Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so just realizing like, oh, these people were only friends with me because I made them feel good about themselves, because I was like broke and exhausted and overworked, and so were they. And like they were like making their own situation okay by surrounding themselves with people who were in that same kind of energetic vibration. So a couple of friendships have kind of gone off. I had to let those go within that first year. That was the first thing that was just kind of stark and like, oh, like this is going to cost me. Like making money isn't all rainbows and butterflies. Like I'm going to have to, and I don't want to say pay for it as in like, oh, I have to like give something up and it's the sacrificial, whatever. But you can't take, I can't take government assistance Janelle with me up the 7-figure mountain, right?
Oh, yeah,
like
absolutely.
It's like she's not going to make the journey, right? And so it's going to cost you, right? That was the first thing. The second thing I would say is I had to get over my money management limiting beliefs. And this, Sarah, running a business, you have to pay taxes. There's profit and loss stuff. There's, there's just stuff that goes with it. There's bookkeeping, right? And so really my first major investment into my business was to bring on, in terms of my team, was to bring on a CFO to help me with that. But just really understanding, okay, money is the lifeblood of the business. Money and time are the lifeblood of any business. I did not want to invest time, so I chose to invest money. And so, but just recognizing like money is the lifeblood of my business. Like I need to make sure it's going out and coming in and right. I don't know. It's like arteries and veins, right? Like one of them, the blood goes out, and one of them, the blood comes back in. I needed to make sure that flow. It's been a long time since I did 4th grade science. But it's like you have to make sure they're coming out and coming in good succession and in a healthy way. And so I would say that was the second thing for me, is I had to overcome all of that and really recognize that, it's not rocket science, and I can make a lot of money and I can be really good at managing it, even though I'm a woman who failed, like, I think I failed 6th grade science or math or something. I like knew I could figure that out. And I think that was really I think that's where I really up-leveled and stepped into my role as a CEO rather than just like a hobbyist or as having my business as a side hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so powerful. I can totally relate to that journey as well. And it is an identity shift. You know, it's becoming a different person and letting go of the attachment to the unhealthy. And isn't it so funny how we can be attached to unhealthy parts of ourselves?
Oh, totally. It's familiar and it's
Exactly.
comfortable. It's like a snail growing out of its shell, but it's just like, well, this is the only one I've known. Like, I don't want to get rid of it. Right. But it's just like, you're not going to grow if you don't. Right. And I mean, even just thinking about that process, like how vulnerable does a snail have to become to go find a new shell? Right. How vulnerable does a butterfly have to be to like come out of its cocoon? Right. It's like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm right in terms of the science on this, but like they have to sit out and dry their wings for like hours before they can fly. Like they could be eaten. They can't protect themselves, right? And it's just like the process of growth and the process of up-leveling always requires risk and vulnerability.
You know, this reminds me of something that I see a lot of my clients deal with in their marriage and talking about relationships. And, you know, a marriage is a sacred bond, regardless of what kind of a marriage it is, whether it's a healthy or a toxic relationship, it's a sacred bond.
Yes.
And sometimes the partner will reluctantly like stay connected and kind of be guided along that growth path. And sometimes they'll hold on kicking and screaming. And sometimes they'll resentfully hold on. And then sometimes they want none of it. They're like, I married a caterpillar. Who the hell is this person?
Totally. Who is this butterfly? And what did she do with my caterpillar? You're
And
totally
sometimes
right.
it's like they don't necessarily believe that they deserve a butterfly. They're comfortable with the caterpillar. And so I'm curious, did you notice any of that dynamic with what I talked about, like with the close friends and your husband? Did you notice any of that resistance or reluctance or even resentment with some of your leaps that you made through the process?
1,000%. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's really been a huge part of my business as well. I've started recording a yearly podcast with my husband because I mean, it's just the way that our relationship has grown through this process has just been fantastic. But yeah, I mean, just to give you a really quick story. So the day that I decided I was going to invest in my business, $10,000, again, we were on government assistance. I don't even know if we might have had maybe $3,000 to our name, like including everything in our bank account, including our emergency fund, like maybe a little bit more if we got a tax refund, but you know what I mean? Like we had no money, right? And so we were, I just remember this clear as day. I told my husband, I said, I just got off this call with this guy about this online coaching program. And I think I can do it. Like, I think, like he said, he's going to give me the roadmap. I can do this, you know? And my conviction, which I believe was the Holy Spirit inside of me, my conviction was just so strong that this is what I needed to do. And my husband was like, are you insane? Like 10,000, like what if it doesn't work? He's like, we don't have that kind of money. Like, and do you hear this? Like, we're not the kind of people that can invest $10,000. We have a baby. He was working in the university. I was a tutor, right? Like we were not those people, but I was just like, no, I can do this. Like I knew I could. And I really had that conviction. And I told my husband, I said, tomorrow I'm going to the bank and I'm going to take out a loan and I'm going to do this. Right. And I mean, it was just, I just knew it was what I had to do. My husband, we got into a screaming match. Talk about a toxic situation, screaming match. And he actually left that night and spent the night at his brother's. Like he left the house. And so it was really hard. And he did not, like, he wasn't excited about my up leveling.
We've experienced that too, by the way.
Almost
the same exact thing.
Totally. Well, and that's why I'm sharing it, because it's obviously it's definitely embarrassing to an extent, but it's also just like, I want people to know that it's normal and it doesn't matter who you are. You experience.
And it's okay.
And totally. And I don't fault my husband at all. I mean, I came out of the woodwork with this thing. Okay. I didn't even give him a week to think about it. I was just like, you have one night only because the banks are closed right now. Right. Otherwise I would have gone right then. Right. So the next morning I went and he came home and he made me a smoothie for breakfast and he handed it to me and he says, Janelle, go get your money. I believe in you. And I know that's a much better ending than a lot of people have. I would have gone to the bank anyway. Like I was walking out the door to the bank, but him believing in me was just another kind of fuel to the fire for me. But for some people, it doesn't happen that quickly. And for some people, it takes longer, and that's okay. You just have to follow your convictions. And so go ahead.
Oh, I just want to share something because it's so perfect for this. So my husband it took him a while and it was really hard for me. And I remember one night I was just so upset about, like, I just want to feel supported in this. Like, I just want to feel like somebody is championing me. You know, I deeply wanted that. And I said a prayer as I was falling asleep, and the answer that I got back was, I'm all the support you need. All the support you need is inside of you. You do not need support from anybody in your life. Of course it makes it easier. Of course it's like enjoyable to have that experience. But like you said, not everybody has that immediate, some people, just their personality, where they're at in their lives, they need to see the proof. And they just don't have the ability to have faith in something like this. And so that was a huge turning point for me, was realizing, wait a second, I have this inside of me. So I just wanted to share that.
That gave me goosebumps, and it's so true. And, we've gone through several up levels, and let me tell you, my husband and I approach money very differently. And I mean, that one ended well. There are several other arguments and conversations that took months. And I mean, we've talked about divorce while talking about money. I mean, it's been a really hard topic for us, to the point that we've had to go to counseling on both sides. We both have injured each other over that conversation. But I think what's most important to remember, because the other person in the relationship wants you to stay in the zone that they feel comfortable with. Yeah. What you have to remember is that your up leveling, it's just like self-care, right? Fill your own cup so that you can overflow to others. In the same way, your up level, your healing journey, your transformation from a caterpillar to a butterfly can only bring goodness in the long run to that same relationship. Exactly. Like, I am on this healing journey so that I experience success in business. And as much, if not more, I'm on this healing journey so that I can be a better mother to my daughter, so that I can be a better wife to my husband, so I can be a better daughter to my parents, right? Like, it's not just about, well, screw you, I'm going to go get my money, like, forget you. It's more of, I'm going to up level and heal myself so that I can turn around and experience a better relationship with you. Because even if they don't change at all, you up leveling is just going to increase the vibration of that relationship.
Exactly. And it's leading the relationship. It's really what's required, to be a leader, is to to carve the path and to pave, pave that way. And if you think about, two people or a group on a journey and the path is unknown ahead, there are going to be people. I mean, look at right now, we're in this pandemic with the stay-at-home orders and everything. This is uncharted territory. Somebody's got to lead it. Somebody's got to make decisions. And a lot of people are kicking and screaming. They're like, this is uncalled for. We don't have freedoms. We need to rebel. We need to protest and all these things. But it's like somebody's got to step up and be the leader and make some decisions that are uncomfortable. But in the end, it's leading us to, in this case, hopefully a better place.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But somebody's got to do it. And if it's not you, if it's not you, Janelle, or me, or the people we're speaking with today, then who's it going to be? And somebody's got to make that decision to level up. Otherwise, it's like they say, you're either growing or you're dying. And so this is such an amazing opportunity for that.
For many people, and specifically leaders, really for everyone, because we're all called to lead ourselves, right? At the very least. And that's something that my coach talks about all the time. We're all called to lead ourselves. But if you are someone like you and I, Sarah, who we are called to lead others as well, whether that be as an entrepreneur or leading our children as part of a family or our spouses, this is the moment that a lot of us were made for. Right? Yeah. This is really the moment where, it's like my dad always used to say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Right. And it's like, this is the moment where people are showing what they're made of, and they're showing their true colors. And they're showing where their faith lies. Right. And so, I mean, I know you and I both believe in a higher power. And I mean, at this point, you just have an option to choose. Like, am I going to choose fear, or am I going to choose love? And that's really, and that's the choice. If you get down to the core of every single decision that you have to make in your life, even if it's brushing your teeth in the morning, it's fear of I won't have enough time, or it's love of I love myself and my health enough to do it, right? I mean, you can literally boil any decision down to that, right? And for me, for that big decision of making my first investment, it was like, I'm going to love and trust myself enough to pursue a higher reality for myself than I ever could have imagined before.
I love it. And I love that you broke it down that way, Janelle, where, like, I think a lot of people, when they hear that phrase, it's either love or fear. It's like, okay, what does that even mean? Love or fear? What does that mean for the situation? And I think you're right. It's about loving yourself. And sometimes those decisions that we make to love ourselves are the hardest decisions.
They are. And I just want to say something else to anyone listening right now is, don't compare my middle to your beginning, right? Don't compare Sarah's middle to your beginning. Like 2 years ago, if I would have heard myself talking, I would have been like, who is this chick talking about love and fear and energetic vibrations and all the things, right? And it's just like, listen, I'm climbing up this mountain at my own pace, and my path is completely different from yours.
Exactly.
And so just glean what's meant for you from this conversation, right? And just use our stories as hopefully inspiration for your journey and your path. But, I think I fell into a lot of comparison in the beginning of my business. And so I would say that was another thing that I had to, when you asked earlier about what did I have to overcome, I would say the comparison game, because it's so easy, right? It's so easy to compare your journey to someone else's. And even now, as I've up leveled, I mean, back again, 2 years ago when I was just a tutor, I mean, a multi-six-figure company, like per year, that's insane. Like, why would anyone want anything more than that? Right. I remember I told that guy, the sales guy who sold me into that first coaching program, when he asked how much I wanted to make, I was like, well, I would be happy with, like $4,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that, Sarah, was like my stretch goal. Like I was
Yeah.
like, wow, if I could bring home $4,000 a month. And it's like, now $4,000 a month won't even pay my employees. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just won't. That's just a fact. And so again, there's always going to be someone doing better than you, doing more than you, you know, experiencing success while you're kind of in the desert, right? And so it's really important to kind of flip that script and view them as inspiration. And really something that I have done is I have been really intentional about saying, I am so happy for you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. And thank you for showing me what's possible.
And also saying, I can do that too.
Yeah. Because you can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think some of the people that we might compare ourselves to might look at us and say, wow, I wish I had that. You know, it's like you just never know where somebody's really at. We see what we see, but we don't know what is underneath. I love that you brought that up about comparison.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest limitations that people could have, because you just don't know what their journey's been. You don't know what's really going on. So do you have any last words for people as far as like what's your biggest tip that people can start doing today if they want to level themselves up and they want to break through some of the barriers that they've been really struggling with?
Such a great question. I think there's actually two things. I'm going to cheat on the question.
Sure.
So the first is asking that question that I shared at the beginning. What do I want? In a perfect world, what would my life look like? Mm-hmm. Right? And just allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to go crazy, right? Like allow yourself to just really imagine the ideal life. And I think you're going to realize that a lot of things just warrant a minor shift or a boundary or what have you, right? So like for me, my dream life includes me having the ability to take a bath every day with a good book and some Lily's chocolate, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't require a ton of money. Like I can do that every night, you know, if I make, you know, some arrangements with my husband. Like that's not something that is crazy out there. But it feels crazy out there, right? Mm-hmm. When you're in the throes of kids and babies or husbands and dogs and work, right? Like it feels insane. Mm-hmm. But it actually doesn't require that much. So what do I want, right? And really just allow yourself to embrace that. The other thing that I would say is and especially if you know that you need some healing, or if you're starting a business or whatever it is, find someone who's done it before and hire them to mentor you and hire them to teach you. I mean, one of my things is everybody needs a coach, right? I currently have 3 mindset coaches, just because they all do different things. And I need that, right? As I'm morphing into this 7-figure Janelle butterfly, right? And you mentioned something before about, it's like at the very beginning of the podcast, you mentioned this like one size fits all journey, or this, you know, just that we are constantly looking to others for what we should do. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that in my story as well. You and I have both been kind of going back to the entrepreneurial track. You and I have both been part of one size fits all coaching programs. Right. There's a difference as you're scaling your mountain, right? Which we all are. We're scaling the mountain of our life. And there's a difference between carrying and guiding, right? Right. Those one size fits all custom programs, they'll carry you, but sometimes they'll carry you up the mountain if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll carry you around the side of the mountain and get you off track. Sometimes they'll carry you back down the mountain, right? Mm-hmm. But you kind of put yourself in that like helpless situation, right? But when you find someone who's willing to work with you and create like a custom program for you, and they're willing to, when you find someone who wants to to work with you and to help you and support you, but doesn't want to make you dependent on them, which is something that I say to my clients all the time. Like, my goal is for you to move beyond me, right? Like, my goal is for you to, scale your path and then walk right on past me, right? And so that's more of a guiding. And we have different guides at different points of our path, but that really should be a constant in our life, is that we always have someone in our life who is guiding us up the mountain, but we're walking on our own. Like, so we're still in control, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And I love that you talked about investing in that, because I was just talking about with my husband today, with accountability partners. And you cannot expect a friend or a family member to properly give you any kind of accountability. There's no investment. There's no investment in friends and family. There's love, there's support, but it's not the same thing. And when you have skin in the game, what was that?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, you need a coach, not a cheerleader.
Exactly. And there's a transformation that happens just with the investment. And then, when everybody's got skin in the game, you're playing just on a different level. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you so much, Janelle, for everything that you brought to us today. So happy to have you on our episode today. What, for everybody who is really resonating with you and your message and would like to, pursue working with you, or, look into some of your offerings, where can we send them?
Absolutely. So the best way, if you feel, if you find yourself being drawn to my message or interested in what the Part-Time CEO is all about, would be to join the Part-Time CEO Circle, which is my community on Facebook. It's a free community. So you can just go to makemeaparttimeceo.com, all lowercase, all smushed together. And that's where you will find my free Facebook group. And that's where I bring all kinds of trainings and love and energy to my people. And so I would love to welcome you into the circle.
Awesome. Sounds great. And you said it's the makemeaparttimeceo.com.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Janelle. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening today. I hope that you got a lot out of this, and drop one of your takeaways in the comments, and have a wonderful rest of your day. We will talk soon.
Thank you, Sarah. It was an honor.
Thanks.